We're doing the age site case study, and today we're going to talk about the break-even point and some of the expenses that I've spent money on so far. Now, I'm going to go outside. I think we're going to change the scenery here, but before we do, I'm going to burn like a lobster out there. I'm going to turn red, so I need to put on some sunscreen. If you're new to the channel, I'm Doug Cunnington, and I talk a lot about Amazon affiliate marketing, and in this specific video, it's like part 6 of a series. So if you're unfamiliar with the age site case study, you should check out the other videos. There's a link in the description where I record some raw notes and stuff like that. And basically the premise here is I bought a site that was aged already, so we're skipping the sandbox. I'm outsourcing almost all the activities, and today in this video, I'll be talking about the expenses and the potential break-even point. Plus, I'm going to pitch a little bit of funny accounting at you here, and we're going to look at the valuation of the site to consider the break-even point. So if that sounds interesting to you, you're going to want to watch till the end here. So let's get into it. And as a quick aside, whenever I try and record outside, a couple things usually happen. The wind kicks up, someone comes by with a leaf blower, or maybe they try and cut the lawn or something like that. So fingers crossed that we're going to be able to record this without incident. We may change locations because I'm actually sitting like in the direct sun and my fair skin, it just doesn't do that well with it. So I may change locations before I bake out here. Now let's get to it. The budget is one of the most important pieces of this case study. And the goal for me overall was to, number one, do something interesting, and hopefully, number two, have an asset at the end of the day. Now, I hear from folks all the time, just like you, and maybe you have more money than time. A lot of times it's folks that have like a high-paying job. Maybe you're like an IT director or a vice president or a project manager like I was. And some other folks, maybe you're like closer to retirement and you just generally like to have a little bit more cash flow and you want to explore like online income. So there's a lot of you out there, and for a long time I didn't really know like what you were interested in, but it turns out this age site case study is like perfect for you. Now, by the way, I will mention all the products and stuff coming up that I'm going to mention. I'm an affiliate, so I get a commission if you purchase through my link, and I appreciate it very much. I will probably buy a beer with that commission. And quick note, Humanproof Designs, that's the company that I purchased the site from. I do have a discount code, so check that in the show notes. You can save 5% on any of their products over there. I appreciate it if you do. So basically, I'm gonna skip to the punchline here. The budget for this project is around $12,000 to $15,000 for the first 6 months or so. And I'm lucky to have a flexible budget. And if you happen to have a flexible budget as well, you may be thinking, hey, I actually have more to spend, especially some of the folks that are closer to retirement. You may have $35,000 or $40,000 to spend, and you're like, let's do it. I can go even faster. I can publish more content and all that stuff. And that's great, but I encourage you to, have some restraint and work within the constraints that you have. I think 15,000 is like pretty good to get started. And I'm going to explain that I've already spent the lion's share of this because I had a lot of work done while I was on vacation, which is super cool. And it kind of I guess it proves that you don't have to babysit this thing. Several people ask questions like, how much time are you spending on it? Doug, are you really doing all the work here? Like, what's the situation? Fact is, I was like off the grid and not doing anything related to the site for probably about a month. It was like 30 days. So I was out of town for like 25 days, at least 10 days to 2 weeks. I was like off the grid, like not really with connectivity. So anyway, let's get back on topic here before I rambled on. So one thing I want to point out with that budget, obviously it's pretty flexible. I said 12 to 15,000. $3,000 is a lot of money, and you may be thinking, can't you tighten it down a little bit more? Sure, we can like say, hey, we're not spending more than 12 or put the cap on 15, but the fact is, I don't know what's gonna happen after a few weeks or a few months, and we're talking about the budget for the first 6 months or so. So I have some flexibility. Again, I'm fortunate to be in the position where I'm like, all right, I can play around with the budget and just make sure that I'm within the range that I expect to be in. So that's kind of why I picked a range there. You have to be flexible. That's the main thing. You got to be flexible here. So let's talk about the cost for some of these core activities and products and services that I've spent already. So number one, the Done For You site purchased from Humanproof Designs. They have a range of age sites, by the way, and they also have sites that are already earning money. So you have a few things to choose from there, but for me, I spent $5,500 on the site that I picked. So it had a few more keywords that it ranked for, potentially like more traffic, and I knew that. That was one of the main criteria. By the way, leave a comment if you want to hear how I picked my specific site. All right, so be sure to leave a comment if you want to hear more about that so I know. So they have sites starting at $1,800, but potentially those are maybe not going to be aged as long, or maybe they don't have as much content, or maybe something else. There's a lot of criteria involved there, and you can have a look and see, what's available out there whenever you're ready to pull the trigger. So I spent more because I was like, hey, I want to shorten the sandbox as much as possible. And I think that is one of the reasons why, we're not even 3 months in, and the site's probably going to hit $100 this month that I'm recording this, which is August 2019. Okay, moving on. I also purchased 50 keywords from Humanproof Designs. They have a service. At least at the time that I'm recording this, it cost, I think, about $100 for 25 keywords. I wanted 50, a pack of 2. So I spent about $200 on that as well. Next, I hired content development pros to write those 50 posts. So that cost about $4,400. And if I remember right, all 50 of the posts were written while I was gone. So in about 1 month, I had all that written. The posts are about 1,200 words a piece or so. And Content Development Pros drafted it in my WordPress installation. I created I think an author editor account for them, and they uploaded it, they drafted, they put an image in there, they put the links that we need so we know what products are mentioned, and then I had one of my VAs go in and just kind of review and make sure it looked good. Usually that's a pretty quick activity. They also look at it for grammar, light editing, so you could hire a content manager. For me, I already had that person sort of working with me, and it was a good way to train that VA on that specific activity. So, quick note, just recap on the site and the content. So, Humanproof Designs, $5,500 for the site. Keywords, I hired Humanproof Designs, $200 for 50 keywords, and 50 articles, 1,200 words a piece. Content Development Pros, $4,400. Let's move on to links. Actually, Content Refined. I hired Content Refined to improve 5 posts that cost $800. So results are still out for that. I just got the content updated, but Content Refined, they will take a look at the existing content on the site. They'll make an assessment on like what posts may benefit from having some content like improvements made. They use a tool called Market Muse, and I've tested this before. I'll put a link in the description for like the case study that I did, but it seemed to work really, really well on the other case study. So I feel like over time this is really going to pay off, but I don't have any results yet. They just updated it, and I told them, hey, those look fine. Whatever your recommendation is, looks good to me. I gave them some credentials as well, created I believe an editor account. They went in, made the changes, so I'm monitoring the results. Okay, moving on to guest posting, which is a pretty big component. Basically, I've gotten 4 guest posts. I use 2 services in this case. One of them is the HOTH, and the other one is called Loganix. I was mispronouncing the name of the company before, but I interviewed the founder and owner, Adam Steele, recently. So I was able to confirm the actual pronunciation of the company. So Loganix is the name of it. And actually, all 4 of the links that I have gotten, they're outstanding. They're on sites with plenty of organic traffic. I've spent $1,700 on those link placements and the outreach associated with it. So obviously, that's a decent chunk of change, but I believe the results show for it because traffic is going up quite a bit on the site. Or at least it's moving in the right direction, and sometimes links and adding content takes a little time for it to work. So, quick recap: we're in about $12,800 at this point. So, like I said, I've already spent the lion's share of it, and let's change locations so that I don't get too sunburned in this exact location. So we'll be right back. It always gets windy out here. It's like clockwork, but let's try and plow through this. So what did I say? Like 12,800. And basically, if you're nervous about laying out that kind of cash, I totally understand. It's a lot of money. I mean, when I bought my truck, I think it cost about that much. So basically, in future videos, if you want to see it, I can explain how to reduce the cost a little bit and, you know, maybe give you some other options. I'm using premium services because I'm trying to outsource everything, and I don't want to babysit the whole process. So leave a comment if you're interested, and I'll see what I can do for you. So basically, we're about close to $13,000 in, and basically on my loose budget, I don't have a ton left before we hit that 15,000, but basically, we got a lot of content. So I'm gonna look at backlinks mostly. I'll probably get a few links per month until we hit that 15,000, or if we start seeing even more good results, I may actually, you know, put the pedal to the metal and add more links. So we'll see how it goes, and that's part of the reason we want to have a flexible budget here. So we have, you know, if things are going good, I don't want to artificially set the budget too low, all right, and then like stop with that momentum. So let's talk about these guest posts a little bit. My arm's getting tired, so I'm gonna have to pause here. All right, we end up under a bridge here. It seems to hit all the check boxes. I'm not in the sun, I'm outside. Unfortunately, you don't get to see the beautiful area around here, but the lighting's pretty good coming in from under the bridge, and it's relatively quiet. So we'll see what we can do. All right, we're talking about guest posting, and you may be wondering, why am I getting the links from 2 other companies and not Humanproof Designs? So number one, if I got the links from Humanproof Designs, it would be pretty boring for the case study. A few people asked me like, hey, why don't you get content from Humanproof? Why don't you get the links from Humanproof? They have all that stuff there. It could just be a one-stop shop. That is true. I know people do that. I talked to Brian, the new owner, and the other crew. I'm sure they do a great job. But basically, if I'm doing a case study and I'm using all their products, it sure does look like I'm like in bed with Humanproof Designs and I'm just like trying to hawk their products. Well, instead, I'm trying to hawk everyone's products out there. So I'm testing stuff out, seeing how it's working, and then if it's panning out well, then I'm working with the company. So basically, I'm using other companies because it's far more interesting from a case study perspective, and potentially each of the companies, this is a little meta, but each of the companies may be interested in talking about the case study instead of just working with one company. So I'll leave it at that. I will also mention this, and this is my own observation here. So Humanproof Designs, they do sell a lot of sites, and I assume they probably sell a lot of backlinks as well. And I know that, you know, Humanproof Designs has a blend of like some guest posting activities, and they also do some private blog networks. If you're unfamiliar with private blog networks, those are like websites that are set up purely for backlinking. So let's think about this for a second. And I'll also mention these are what you would call gray hat links. So gray hat is like the kind of link that, or kinds of activities that Google doesn't like. Now, sure, you could say if I'm paying for guest post placements, that is also against the rules, but these PBNs are, I think, a little bit worse. And let me explain like some of the risk there. I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but if you wanna learn more, you could just Google, private blog networks. You can learn all about it. Look out, people are gonna be trying to sell you a whole bunch of stuff. So, okay. Basically, I think these PBNs are a little bit more risky than what I want to get into. And obviously, Humanproof Designs, they view the PBNs as low risk. And that's okay. Like, everyone has a different opinion. I'm not personally against them. I just don't use them myself. So let's think about this. Let's say there's a bunch of PBN links to a bunch of affiliate sites that kind of originated from the same source. I would say that's a footprint, and kind of I would say like an obvious one. I don't know. So if I can get links from different sources through potentially a slightly less risky format, guest posting versus private blog networks, that's what I'm gonna do. Again, it also makes the case study more interesting. From, again, a deeper meta situation, guest posts are going to be more expensive than private blog network links because there's more work behind it. Probably they are going to be more effective, but not always, right? So again, I know there's tons of people out there that use PBNs. They love them. They've been using them for years, blah, blah, blah. Not my thing. And I could tell you that I've been kicked in the balls a couple times by Google for using private blog networks, these PBN links. So I kind of learned my lesson. So I'm moving on, and pick your poison, whatever you want to do. If you like the PBN links, you want to get them from Humanproof Designs, you could use my discount code, right? You can save 5% right there. Whatever you want to buy, like, that's cool with me. And you have to assess your own risk. Like, if you are able to, deal with the risk, if you're okay with it, then that's cool. It will probably work out fine. And if you are penalized, then you already knew the risk and you were like, hey, you know what? If this thing explodes, then it's okay with me. So just not my style anymore. Before we get to the break-even point and some of my, flexible accounting here, I want to mention that if you do use the PBN links or other links which people tell you are risky, I would keep it under 20 to 25% of your total links. And the main idea there is, like, if you have an issue, if your site is penalized, you can disavow those links that are causing you an issue, and you still have the remaining links that aren't risky. So the main problem that I had when I was penalized multiple times for different sites for using PBNs and other links made up 90% of the backlink profile. So if I disavowed all of those, there would be no rankings left. If you keep your risky links to a lower amount, then you're going to be able to potentially recover, because you could just get rid of the bad ones and you still have the majority of your links as good ones. And then you can, do whatever you want. Again, if you're good with the risk, you can do that. So it's up to you. All right, let's talk about this break-even point. So if you're unfamiliar with the term, let's just define what we're talking about. Basically, this is when the initial investment that you've made is paid for. So in this case, let's call it $13,000. We'll round up, and we'll just look at it at this point in time. Obviously, I'm going to be getting more links in the future and doing some more promotion. So basically, I'm going to talk about two lines of reasoning here. So number one is the straight up definition, and the second one is the flexible accounting that I've been teasing you with this whole time. So if the site makes, let's just make some assumptions here. So if the site makes $100 per month, which it should be hitting $100 per month pretty soon, and it just is static, it stays at $100 per month, it will take 130 months to pay for the site and for me to be like even at zero. That's 11 years. That's a pretty long time. That's not what we're looking for. So if it stays at 100, that's not awesome. However, if it makes $500 per month, that's going to be paid off in about 26 months. Now, let's just keep going with the hypothetical here. Work with me. $1,000 per month paid off in 13 months. $1,500 per month, that is a little under 9 months. And if we can get to $2,000 per month, which would be exceptional, I think it's possible, but it would be fantastic. We're talking 6.5 months. Now, yes, you may be thinking, well, the first few months it didn't make anything. That's true, that's true. So this is like a sliding sort of scale. It like progressively goes up. And if you wanted to, you could map this out in a spreadsheet, like dollar by dollar, penny by penny. For the math people out there, you see where calculus comes from, just dividing it up over and over again. So you can map this out and see like, hey, if you're making this amount, it would take this long to pay off, and it's always shifting, right? So even if we hit $100 this month, it may not be $100 next month. It may be less, it could be 50, or it could be 500 or whatever. Now, obviously, I hope it goes up. And I think if we, I think like an average sort of like goal, an acceptable goal for me in this case would be, it'd be really cool to hit $1,000 within about 6 months or so. And at that point, we're looking at, about a little over a year to pay off the investment at $13,000. Okay. So I would say it's probably likely to hit $1,000 under a year, hopefully at 6 months, but 6 months to a year, I think it's totally possible. And at that point, the investment could be paid back fairly quickly. Now, flexible accounting, let's talk about that. Now let's redefine the break-even point just a little bit. So it's flexible accounting, but let's redefine the term so we have that leeway. So let's say the break-even point is the value of the site and when that equals the cost. So again, let's make an assumption and I'll state it clearly. So if you disagree, that's cool. Just let me know in the comments. A site is generally going to be valued at about 30 times the monthly profits. So with this sort of flexible accounting, you could sell the site and pay for all the money that you spent, thus being at the break-even 0 point right there. So yeah, when you're looking at the profit, you may be saying like, well, what about the ongoing cost and blah, blah, blah. I've just paid in lump sum, so there's not like ongoing content that's being added. I got 50 keywords and then I published 50 articles, and that's like paid for already, sunk cost, and there's no ongoing cost for that. So if I could get to certain amounts of revenue, that would generally be like 95, 99% profit. I mean, the hosting is relatively inexpensive. So with that sort of reasoning, the break-even point is a little bit lower because we're just looking at like the value of the site and what we potentially could sell it for. So we're redefining the break-even point to give us a little more leeway. So maybe this won't be as scary. All right. So maybe it won't be as scary. Now we're gonna assume this $13,000, even though I'm going to be spending a little bit more in the coming months, but let's just look at this instantaneous point in time right now. So if we do the math here, $13,000, and we're looking at 30 times the monthly multiple, right? All right. Stick with me here. Basically, you take 13,000 and you divide it by 30, and you end up with about $433 per month. So through this second method here, you can assume that you could sell the site for $13,000. Don't forget, you got to pay for some other things out there, like potentially broker fees, or maybe your monthly multiple won't be as much. But we're looking at me specifically here. I'm not planning on selling it, by the way, but I probably wouldn't have to work with a broker. I could probably just email people that I know. And 30x monthly multiple, I maybe could get more than that. So, you know, if you're just talking about me selling it, which, I mean, this whole thing is really about me, basically, I'd probably be in good shape if I can get $433 a month on average for a few months. I could probably sell it and make all my money back. Now, if I keep it, it may take a little while if we're just like locked in at this $433 per month mark, but most likely it's gonna go up. I'm doing a lot of work to it. There's more content and all that stuff. So that is the funny accounting. By the way, let me know if you agree with that sort of accounting where you're looking at the valuation. I think it's valid, right? I mean, if you're trying to justify spending to maybe your family, your friends, your spouse, this could be an interesting way to look at it, and you could point them towards this video if you want. So anyway, do check out the case study raw notes page over at nichesiteproject.com/ASCS for Age Site Case Study. Please check out the playlist that has all the other videos in here. I talk about many other aspects, and if you have questions, leave them in the comments. I may not be able to reply at all. I may not be able to reply right away, but I look at your questions and comments so that I know what other videos to make. Otherwise, I'm just talking about stuff I'm interested in, which you may not be interested in. So thanks a lot for checking it out. Again, Doug Cunnington. Look around the other part of the channel if you're, if you like what you see here. If you watch this whole video, you'll probably like the other videos too. So subscribe, click the little bell for notifications and all that business. Catch you next time.